Jumping back into Elaine Cottam's testimony, we're going to review one of the Pinnacle logs, which was essentially a call or incident log that was maintained by Fujitsu and used by the support teams and the help desk to track calls and issues. And some very interesting facts come out of it. Not only did Elaine Cottam herself personally witness Horizon errors happening in front of her eyes when she was helping at the Cleveleys Post Office after they'd presumably called her to come in, but she actually complained to the Horizon helpline, lodged a complaint about the issues that were being had with mysterious additions happening to stock units which were preventing them balancing. Yet 3 weeks later, Julie Wolstenholme was suspended from a post office. How did it come to that? Let's jump into the inquiry to find out.
Can we look, please, at FUJ 005 5145? Display problem again. We'll be back with you shortly. This is a Pinnacle, as it's called, opened on the 2nd of November 2000 and closed on the 7th of November 2000. Do you know what a Pinnacle is? Do you recall what a Pinnacle is?
No.
Had you ever heard the phrase before?
No.
You'll see it's dated the 2nd to the 7th of November 2000. So 2 or 3 weeks before Mrs. Wolstenholme was suspended on the 30th of November 2000. You understand?
Yeah.
Let's look at what it records by looking at activities. In the third line, PM has noticed that the adjust stock figures from shared stock unit AA are showing in shared stock unit RJ and vice versa. Postmaster viewed the adjust stock figures in stock unit RJ and it showed 20 times £20 smart creds that were remmed into stock unit AA on a time and date with a session ID. These have not been transferred across to stock unit RJ, but are showing on the adjust stock screen. Balance, snapshot, correct. And then a couple of lines on advice. Postmaster advised that this is an intermittent problem occurring since the counters were upgraded on the 23rd of October. And then over the page, please. Third line, repeat call. Postmaster phoned back and still has not heard from anyone. Voiced Phil at SMC. Do you remember what the SMC was?
No.
The second line of support. As soon as he can, advised Postmaster of this. And then 2 lines on, repeat call, still awaiting a reply, getting very upset, waiting to balance and get to family, etc. 2 lines on. Information, HSH contacted SMC for an update, advised call him with SSC. Do you remember what the SSC was?
No.
We know it as the third line of support. Will be dealt with as soon as possible. And then 3 lines on, follow-up. RNM, Elaine Tag, that's you, called re the call. She is on her way to the office and wants updating on the situation. Spoke to reference Kath on the third line, I think that's the third line of support, who advised she will check who is working on the call and get them to ring the office as soon as possible. Message relayed back to the retail network manager. Retail network manager not very happy with the response. Do you recall this kind of event where there would be a problem at the Cleveleys branch? You would go round to the branch, recorded here, you're on your way to the office, and you would be calling in, complaining about the response of the help desks?
No.
Would you accept that?
I wouldn't really have known unless they told me when I got there. If the helpline hadn't called me, which I don't think they would have done, I wouldn't have known until I got to the office. They would have had to tell me they'd been onto the call line.
I mean, I'm guessing presumably to get her to come to the office, they'd already rang her to update her on the situation, so that could explain it.
The helpline.
Okay, this has got you calling in to the third line of support.
Yeah, so I must have called them because, they must have asked me to go to the office, wanted an update.
Anyway, you're recorded as not being very happy with the response of the help desk. Do you see that?
Yeah, well, I can't remember why now, that's that long ago.
No. Then if we go over the page, please, at the top of the page, first line, halfway through, advised postmaster needs to contact the MBSC and let them know of the situation, as they will probably not be able to do a cash account.
I don't know what that means.
Can you recall what the MBSC was?
No.
Can you recall what doing a cash account was?
Yeah.
What was doing a cash account?
It was doing the weekly balance.
And presumably that isn't possible, understandably, if the stock units are out of whack, because then it won't balance, will it?
Reading on, repeat call, RNM calling. They've called a few times now.
Hang on, I can't find that. Where's that?
So it's just after the passage that's highlighted. The next line, that's it.
Yeah.
RNM calling, that's you. They have called a few times now, expecting a callback with info, and no one has called them. The office is closed, but they're waiting for a call. Reading on, repeat call, voiced EDSC while speaking to them, PM terminated call. Call summary has changed. Postmaster has noticed that the adjust stock figure from has been changed to adjust stock figures from shared. And then reading on, so 5 lines on, contacted the RNM, that's you, for this office, as she's now made a complaint regarding this issue. Elaine, Retail Network Manager, advised that all stock units have now been rolled over, and they're now checking them to see if the final balance is showing to be correct. One of the stock units had something added to it whilst rolling over. Can you remember what rolling over was?
Yeah.
What was rolling over?
You would balance on the Wednesday night, and then you rolled it over to the Thursday to start afresh.
Well, I mean, I think there's one positive thing here, and she seems to know about, even if not the Horizon system, the actual operation of the post office from a procedural point of view, which I guess isn't surprising given that she has been an assistant manager and the manager of a post office, or several post offices prior to this.
So that was like, say that was week 1. Week 1 would be ended, you'd roll it over into week 2.
And this is a Thursday morning. Take it from me that the 2nd of November 2000 was a Thursday.
Sometimes they did it on a Wednesday night.
And if, when rolling over, the system added something to a stock unit whilst rolling over, that would be a problem, wouldn't it?
Well, I'd never come across that.
Do you accept that? This is recording.
The system couldn't add something to it.
It just couldn't.
Someone or something must have added something to it. You're just rolling it over.
And that would be the point there. Something or someone, a bug, another person maybe. I mean, she's at the office now with the subpostmaster at this point, so presumably it's neither of them, because even if the subpostmaster was attempting to do something, then Elaine Tagg, as she was known then, would have also been there to notice what she was doing.
You're rolling £100 over, it should show £100 in the next week that you're starting with.
This is recording you lodging a complaint at a failure of the help desk to deal with the issue, and you telling the help desk one of the stock units had something added to it whilst rolling over. That's not Mrs. Wolstenholme or Mr. Harrison adding something to the stock unit, somebody adding something. You're telling the help desk here that there's a problem with the system, aren't you? A stock unit has had something added to it.
Well, yeah. How it was added to it is another matter.
No, and that's what you're, if we continue, Elaine, that's you, was very annoyed that no one from third line had called her back. She has been promised a number of callbacks. And then over the page, please. Apologised for her not receiving any callbacks and advised I would escalate the fact that the agent she has spoken to have promised callbacks within the hour, as they should not be making promises like these.
Well, certainly not if you can't keep them. I mean, an hour would be a swift response, but presumably this is a big issue.
Advised her that third line are very busy with their investigations and sometimes do not have time to call back. They may call back sometimes if they require additional information or actions. Advised I would monitor the call. If any updates occurred, I would notify them. And then there's some information about assigning it to a team member. And then if we read on a little bit, 4 lines under response, can you see that?
Yeah.
It says there is a CEL for this problem.
CEL, as a reminder, is the known error log, so issues, defects, bugs that they're aware of at Fujitsu.
Did you know what CELs were?
No.
Had you ever heard of anything called a known error log?
No.
Anyway, it says there is a CEL for this problem, and the reference is given, LKINANG 351M. The CEL explains that it's currently being investigated by development. I've not spoken to the customer. Had you been told that there was a system maintained by Fujitsu, who operated Horizon, that recorded known errors, known problems with the Horizon system?
Had I been told?
Yeah.
No. No.
There's a record here that one of those known problems, known errors, is seemingly afflicting the Cleveleys branch, i.e., there is a CEL for this problem.
No, I didn't know that.
And this is 3 weeks prior to a dismissal. And she's there actually witnessing this problem, saying something's being added to the stock unit, and she knows it's not at the branch because she's at the branch now, which would make the decision a few weeks later somewhat bizarre. I mean, she's seeing firsthand on numerous occasions and making many calls herself to the Horizon Helpdesk, so surely, if she is standing by the reason for Mrs. Wolstenholme's dismissal is refusal to use Horizon, then surely she could understand where she was coming from at this point.
And then there's nothing relevant on the remainder of that page. Go over the page. Contacted PM, this is 3 lines in, on the 6th of November. Further information requested on the known error log, adjusted, everything was okay, all stock showed correct value.
So that would imply there somebody going into the system, possibly Fujitsu at this stage, because this is a Fujitsu documents on the Fujitsu side, and all sounds like manually correcting the issue with the stock units. They know there's an error which is causing some transfers and additions into stock units, which can obviously mean that the balancing can't happen correctly. It will show a shortfall, presumably, or it could potentially show a surplus, I guess. But this sounds like somebody actually going into the live system at the Cleveleys Post Office branch and adjusting the values manually, i.e. taking off these additional stock units that have been added when they've tried to roll it over to the next week.
Reading on, showed all AA figures, stock units, so Postmaster had adjusted back to RJ value. Then RJ, it showed all negative figures, but the negative value reflects as a stock value, but in negative format. And then an example is given. And then at the foot of the page, 4 lines up, more information has been received with regard to this problem. Is the CEL available, as I'm unable to locate it? Please can this be investigated further? Then over the page, 5 lines in, see CEL, and then that number is given, already specified. Postmaster has not been contacted, closing as published known error.
Well, that's not very helpful to Julie Wolstenholme at this point, is it? Oh, it's a known error, so we'll just close the call and not let her know.
And then the call is closed. So you didn't know about the known error log?
No. Never heard of it.
There's no record on here, or indeed elsewhere, of you or the subpostmaster being told that a known error in the system occurred, which was affecting the balancing process. You see, there's no record on this Pinnacle.
No. Well, no, I didn't know about it.
Instead, the service desk closed the call, don't contact the subpostmaster, and they close it because it's a known error with Horizon. Can you see that?
No. Yeah, I can. Didn't even know there was such a thing.
Would this be important information that you would want to take into account or ensure that decision makers took into account when coming to decide 3 weeks later to suspend Mrs. Wolstenholme and then terminate her contract?
If there were known errors, and this was the first time I'd heard about it, you'd have to take that into account. I'd never. This is the very first time I've heard about a known error. So, you don't know how many times it would have been. You couldn't just say on that one statement that it would have altered any decision. But certainly, if it'd been an ongoing thing, and there was a lot of published known errors, and you would have known about it, you would have had to take that into account.
That can come down from the screen, thank you.
Well, that's a good sign, at least, that it would have been taken into account. And I get what she's saying. One incident out of many wouldn't necessarily change the path of specific cases, but in this specific case, it was error after error after error after error after error. And it would have placed a seed of doubt, you would hope, in a manager's mind, seeking to suspend a subpostmaster if there were some issues at least being caused by known errors, and then trigger maybe to ask more questions about other potential errors. So it's very likely that it could have at least influenced the decision on whether this happened, and certainly on whether a prosecution was brought against the subpostmaster in this case.